Our guest today is the Chief Information Officer and the Commissioner of the Department of Innovation and Technology for the City of Chicago. She has focused her team on, number one, Mayor Emanuel's commitment to an open and data-driven government, and number two, implementing Mayor Emanuel's commitment to leveraging data and technology to create a more efficient, effective, and innovative city government. Our guest today earned her bachelor's degree and master's degree in public policy from the University of Chicago. She lives in Chicago with her husband, Kendrew, and two sons, Evan and Alex. Ladies and gentlemen, Brenna Berman. Brenna?
Bit shorter than Jay in many things. All right, good afternoon. Hope everyone enjoyed their lunch. So before I jump in, I have what I feel most days is a very big job the mayor's given me, and I could not deliver that at any time without an amazing team, many of whom I dragged with me here today. And since Jay's introduced probably more than a dozen people, I actually will not name all of them by name because I actually couldn't get through them all. But there's just a couple that I'd actually like to introduce you to. A little bit new to the job, but not new to the city. Kevin Moran, the Chief Technology Officer for the City of Chicago. Our partner actually in the mayor's office, Catherine Yeager, Deputy Chief Policy Director for the mayor. Carmen Sandu, Managing Deputy for the Department of Innovation and Technology. Rod Warren, Deputy over Infrastructure. He keeps the lights on. Doug Hurtlebrink, Leader of Applications. Danielle Demerer, Deputy over Policy. Sorry. Paul Bivian, Chief Information Security Officer. And finally, Yolanda Gardner, Deputy over Finance and Administration. Without them, I could not get through the day. Oh, I think I lost my mic. Is that back on? Oh, there we go. Okay. Alrighty. So from the very, very beginning of his administration, Mayor Emanuel has focused on the power of technology to change Chicago's future. And we're beginning to see the results of that focus, and many of you have been involved in that change. So as we move from bricks and mortar to applications and fiber, we actually can see that innovation continues to fuel Chicago's ambitions. If some of you don't recognize this picture, two things should be familiar. One, Chicago is the center of the universe. We all know that. And we actually, just like we were the center of railroad infrastructure in the United States, we are actually the center of the commercial internet exchange. This actually fuels some of our power as a technology center. And there's two changes that we've made in city government to take advantage of being the center of the universe and to be a good partner in driving innovation technology. So there's two things that we've done to be a good partner in that change. First, we've consolidated how we drive technology leadership in the city. We've centralized the roles of Chief Technology Officer and Chief Data Officer into the CIO's office. This lets us drive a comprehensive technology strategy for the city, and it makes us easier to work with. We're a one-stop shop now for those of you that need to talk to us about a technology partnership. We should be easier to find. You come see me. Not always easy in the past, right? And also, we launched about a year ago the City of Chicago's first technology plan. This is a 5-year vision of how technology can drive change across all sectors of the city, be that education, economic development, or better government. It's also given me a unique perspective on the technology innovation ecosystem of the city. And I'd like to use this opportunity here today to give you a perspective on that ecosystem, give you a look at some of the progress that we've made together in shaping technology here in the city and hopefully introduce you to some of the partners in that ecosystem that you may not know, spark some new ideas, and introduce you to some new partners. I'm going to start with the civic tech community. So Chicago's growing community of civic-minded technologists and residents, they work together innovatively to solve Chicago's biggest problems, and they do it in some pretty interesting ways. So on any given evening or afternoon here in the city, there are dozens of meetups, hackathons, and informal gatherings in coffee shops where people use their technology skills, their community organizing skills to get together and solve problems. They solve problems around noise at the airport. They solve problems of understanding our built infrastructure. You name it, there are people getting together to use technology in their spare time. This is not what they're paid for. And they're doing it every day. One of my favorite examples is actually an application called Edifice. It was built by a group called, I just lost my spot. There we go. We need a bigger podium. You asked me for changes. It was built, that's what happens when you ask for recommendations. There we go. It was built by a group called the Open City App Team that met at a hackathon and decided that there was a way to use open data from the city of Chicago to get a better perspective on our built environment. And they got together and built an application that is simply a series of city maps that highlights different aspects of our built environment. You can see pictures of maps with all of the city buildings color-coded by their square footage, by the amount of energy they use, by the number of inspections different buildings have had. It's a really unique way to get a look at how the city looks from different perspectives, all built in their spare time, all built to help different parts of the city gain better transparency into how the buildings in the city look, how those buildings might be performing, and how you might be able to use that information to help you answer questions about the city. It's also something that community service organizations are doing, using data to help serve their residents better. It was a pretty amazing sight back in September when more than 200 community service organizations got together on an empty floor of the Sears Tower to talk about how they could use data to do things better. This wasn't a one-shot deal. It came out of several people, some of them in this room, talking about the fact that there really might not be enough skills in community service organizations to use data well. How could we understand that problem? So there were 60 in-depth interviews done across community service organizations across the region. So not just Chicago, Cook County, even beyond the borders of Cook County, to understand what the relationship might be between community organizations and how they were using data. This led to a 2-day conference over a Friday and a Saturday to bring those organizations together to understand how they could better use data, how they could partner together to increase their skills, and how they might meet small companies here in the region that could help them do that better. There were museums, there were economic development organizations, there were small child care organizations, there were big companies. It was pretty amazing. And like I said, this wasn't a one-shot deal. It's leading to a final report that's going to lay out an agenda for the coming months to fill the gaps that we found. It's a pretty amazing opportunity when you think about a school of data forming to make sure that community service organizations are benefiting from this renaissance of data and technology that's booming in Chicago. And out of this ecosystem, we have new partnerships coming together that you might have never seen before. So we have the rise of collaboratives. And there's 2 pretty amazing examples, both of whom are here today in the room. So you have UI Labs, and they're responsible for this pretty amazing place being built up on Goose Island. So we have the Digital Manufacturing Lab being built on Goose Island on the back of a $350 million federal grant that decided the best place to be was on an island in Chicago that's best known for its beer. So pretty soon I guess they'll be printing bottles as their first stop. And besides UI Labs, you have the Smart Chicago Collaborative, which does more than live tweet from meetings like this. So the Smart Chicago Collaborative is actually a collaboration of philanthropies and city government. So it was founded by by the Chicago Community Trust, the City of Chicago, and the MacArthur Foundation. And they're completely dedicated to some pretty simple principles, which their executive director, Dan O'Neill, mentions at the beginning of every single meeting for the past 5 years. Technology, Chicago, openness, and I always get the last one wrong, everyone. Thank you, Dan. Yep, every meeting. And they make sure that everything we build, that everyone builds in Chicago, is available and appropriate for everyone in the city to use. It sounds really simple, but it's really important. And one of the best ways they get this done was by founding and growing the CUT group, which is the Civic User Testing Group. And if you don't know about this, because there's many people in this room that build technology for the city of Chicago, you should. The Civic User Testing Group is 800 residents from every community in the city of Chicago that are paid to test applications, and they test them in English and Spanish. They have the methodologies, the technology, and the organizational structure to end user test your applications for residents. And it is such a well-tested and well-developed methodology that there was a book written about it. We will be using this group to test the new 311 system when it is ready in a couple of years. Don't get excited. And it is a fabulous organization that has harnessed the power of our residents to make sure that the technology built in the city of Chicago is right for the residents that live here and use that technology. It's an amazing organization and an amazing group. So the startups. So everyone, if you don't know by now, should know about the waves that the startups in Chicago are making around the country. But if you don't, I'm going to give you a couple of numbers that should tell you. So in the last 3 years, the startups in Chicago have created more than 16,000, this is just the last 3 years, over the last 3 years, they've created more than 16,000 digital jobs. In 2014 alone, the first half of 2014, they've raised more than $450 million of capital alone, this year alone so far. And the exits of the 15 companies that have either been bought out or merged with another company have ranged from $120 million to my favorite price tag of undisclosed, right? If you don't know what it costs, you can't afford it. Also unique to Chicago, because we've always done things a little differently here, we have more than 50 co-working spaces in Chicago that can house a startup. They vary by the types of startups that they house and the nature of the work that they support. And perhaps most interesting on this list is the Chicago Public Libraries. Now, we all know that you can go to the Chicago Public Libraries for a million different things, and almost last on the list these days are books, frankly, right? People go there to do 3D printing. People go there to house community groups. And now, with the launching of the Geeks in Residence program, you go there to meet and learn from a startup. The first startup to move into the Geeks in Residence program was the Public Goods Software Company, and in exchange for their, and there was no rent, but in exchange for their rent, which was free, they hosted mentoring programs, entrepreneurship education programs, and the Chicago Public Libraries used this as a way to bring the nature of entrepreneurship to the residents of the city. Very unique to Chicago and sort of just the way we do things here. We bring technology down directly to the residents. We have a very special relationship, I feel, here in Chicago between the city and our minority and women-owned business enterprises. They have always been a key way of how we get work done in the Department of Innovation and Technology. They have provided quality business support to my department for decades. But it was, frankly, pretty much as vendors. It's always been high quality, but it was a transactional relationship. So 2 years ago, I launched the Vendor Advisory Board, and I wanted to take that relationship from being just a basic vendor partner to a trusted advisor. And in doing that, I've gotten some excellent advice, some excellent recommendations in how to improve our procurement process. And that's resulted in a couple of things that we're beginning to see the value of in the coming years. That's resulting in increased opportunities. Things like the development of Bid Tracker. So how many people have ever turned in a bid to the city, only to sort of have it go into a black hole for 2 years before you find out if you've won, if you haven't, if there's going to be a contract, if there isn't. Not anymore. Now you can go onto Bid Tracker and actually see where your contract is, see what phase it's in. It may still take 2 years. We're still working on that. We're still working on that. Not so much, not all the time. It may still take a while, but you will know where it is in every step of the procurement process. That's part of transparency, information between us as partners to know exactly the status of our relationship and where we are. We've changed some of our qualification requirements to make them actually reflect the type of work you've done so we can assess those bids fairly. We've refreshed our task order qualification pools to reflect the skills that we need and the skills that we want you to bring to the table. And we've reformulated some of our biggest IT opportunities in the last year and for the coming year to make it easier to partner together. I think this is real change and change that will continue in the future as the vendor advisory group grows. This is something I'm looking forward to. I know many of you are part of this group, and I look forward to working with you in the future. It's a changing and growing relationship. And our relationship with large corporations has changed as well, both in the corporations we're partnering with and in the work that we're doing with existing partners. I know that the Architecture Foundation is here today, and for those of you that have not been to the Big Data exhibit, you should go right away. This is a picture actually of data photographed onto the city model as part of that exhibit, and IBM was a partner in making that exhibit a reality. They took the city's open data, created extremely visual dashboards, and showed how you can use open data to create an operating model for cities to make decisions. They were a key partner in that exhibit, a new role. We also have had a key partnership with Allstate. Our data engineers teamed up to create an analytical model that the health department's restaurant inspectors are using to find critical violations twice as fast. That's pretty amazing, and we couldn't have done it without them. And then finally, earlier this year, Cisco brought their Internet of Things World Forum to the United States for the first time. They brought it to Chicago to show us how connected infrastructure could make Chicago more efficient and effective. These types of partnerships don't happen overnight, and it is actually our partnership with the Civic Consulting Alliance that makes sure that those partnerships are mutually beneficial to the city and our other corporate partners. And we rely on the Civic Consulting Alliance to help us through those partnerships and manage them over time. So we have an extensive portfolio of corporate partnerships that extend our reach and make my department, frankly, much stronger than the 110 people that it really is. And perhaps our most innovative and cutting-edge projects happen through the partnerships with academia and the national labs. The most notable and probably, frankly, the most exciting is the array of things. You'll be seeing these, they don't look as stylized as this, but you'll be seeing these come spring. These are multi-sensor platforms that'll be collecting micro-level environmental data from around the city come spring. This data will be shared broadly through the open data platform. It'll be available to residents, community groups, and researchers alike, and give us an insight into the city at a level that we've not had before, and available to anyone who wants to use this to develop their own programs and insights into the city of Chicago. I think it's important to understand, though, that our partnerships, are not just in Chicago, though we are excited to partner with nearly every university in the Chicago area and Illinois as well. And they're also not just with technology programs. We partner with the Harris School, we partner with law schools, and we partner with universities across the country. Our academic partnerships are driven by the mayor's commitment to open up Chicago as an urban lab and drive that partnership to solve some of our most intractable problems for the long term. I probably spend most of my time working with other governments that serve the same constituents that I do. I know that Simona was introduced probably first off of Jay's list, and we talk to each other nearly every day. We have the same problems, we have the same customers, and that partnership helps us reach residents more quickly and in similar ways. Perhaps the most important example there to mention is our consortium around cybersecurity, which lets us take a regional perspective around risk reduction and has saved our common taxpayers more than $5 million in the last 2 years. However, that reach and collaboration does extend beyond Cook County, and we've been teaming with CIOs from around the country and even outside of the United States. And we formalized those partnerships recently through a collaboration with the Harris School through the Urban Technology Forum, where we hosted more than 5 CIOs from around the U.S. And beyond, because Toronto and London decided to show up, which was great, where we created an agenda of common urban technology problems and identified several common solutions that we could work on together. It should be pretty obvious why this is important. Cities have similar problems, and the ways technology can address them are fairly common as well. And by pooling our resources, we can get more bang for the buck and learn from each other. In these days of cash-strapped budgets, et cetera, working together helps us get to solutions faster. Partially, it is our commitment to open source that makes this possible. And as an example, the city spends quite a bit of time focusing on the development of solutions through open source software. You're seeing a small picture there of the development of the data dictionary, which is how we catalog all of the data that the city tracks, and we have been able to share this with other cities that now use this tool to do just the same thing. Other cities build in the same way, and it means that it's one less thing that we have to build or license from another company. Finally, almost every project that you've seen today has been supported in one way or another by a philanthropy. Philanthropies do much more for us than just fund our programs, however that is helpful. They convene discussions with broad stakeholders that make the ideas that we pursue and the solutions that we develop broader in scope and deeper in meaning. We're very lucky here in the city of Chicago to have several philanthropies and foundations that are leaders in the discussion of urban analytics and city solutions. The MacArthur Foundation, the Chicago Community Trust, the Sprague Memorial Institute are all leaders in their space and supporters of our projects. Without them, most of this work would not be possible. Our reach and partnership with foundations has grown beyond the local to include Bloomberg Philanthropies, the Knight Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, for whom I could not find a logo. Without them, we would not be able to achieve most of what you've seen here today. This was a bit of a whirlwind tour of many of the things that have been going on in our innovation ecosystem. For every example I've provided today, there were probably a dozen for each one that I was not able to mention. Much like authors do in books, anything good that you've seen here, I've been happy to collaborate with, but the the thanks tends to belong to the author of that work. Any mistakes or anyone I've overlooked, the fault is all mine. If you haven't seen yourself here, and you should have, it's only because I haven't met you yet, and I ask you to reach out and connect me. I hope that you've seen here someone that you should talk to or seen an idea that you should develop. You will see an incredibly robust cataloging of the progress we've made here in Chicago in the last year when the tech plan, when we published an update of the first year of the tech plan right before Christmas. So I would encourage you to hopefully reach out and see that. It's my hope that this overview has provided you with a look at how exciting the work of the ecosystem here in Chicago is. You're all part of that, and I'm excited to be part of it as well. With that, I would open up, I think we have some questions, and I thank you and look forward to working with you in the future.
Well done.
Thank you, Jim.
We will be taking bids to widen the podium. Get your bids in early because it could go up. Do we have our first question now? City Club P is collecting questions. Raise your hand. This comes from Jerry Rocco,
Cisco.
Cisco. There's so many great lines, but it just can't do it. Can you share examples of what Chicago or other cities are doing to turn long lines into online? There's
Sure.
a slogan for you.
Yeah, that like goes on a T-shirt, Jerry. Sure, and I will give you the Chicago example. In his 2014 budget, the mayor committed to move all licenses and permits into paperless and online. So that's probably the best example here. We're not all the way there. We're part of the way there. I'm trying to find Jerry. He's somewhere over there. And that's part of the mayor's commitment to making it easy to do business with the city and in the city. So all of our permits and licenses will be paperless and online by 2016. You will always be able to come in person and talk to a knowledgeable city worker if you need to. And I think one of the most exciting parts of turning all of that paperless will be the wizard that's part of that to help Chicago businesses understand exactly what they need from the city and how to get it. And you'll see the first versions of that in Q3 of 2015. So that's actually probably the best example here in Chicago. But we're doing that in other parts of our business as well. But that's my favorite example, is going paperless with business licenses and permits.
This question is from Laura Lane, Partnership for a Connected
Illinois.
IL.
Illinois. Do you know where you live?
Listen, Brenna, I went to UFC too.
Yeah.
Cut that Hyde Park crap out, will you? What is the future plan for the broadband infrastructure in the city?
Sure.
25 words or
Yeah,
less.
25 words. Yeah. I wish there was an answer for infrastructure in 25 words or less. So having a really strong infrastructure is important to Chicago's future, and the mayor is highly focused on that. Right now, we are working through the RFP process to bring broadband infrastructure to key industrial corridors of the city, and that will be out before the end of the year. 25 words or less. I think
Well
that was
done.
close.
The old professor has a question. There are some old timers here. If anybody wanted something printed, like in the old days on the 10th floor of City Hall, do you ever print any of this? Like pamphlets or little booklets?
Yeah, no. No, we print.
My colleague is giving me a nod there. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, we print, we print, and actually we are,
Mike.
yeah, no, we print. I'll print for you. No, actually, there's a good answer to that. Whenever we are working on the best solution for the residents of Chicago, we think about all of the residents. So any technology is always, or any city piece of information is available through all channels. So it's never available just on a smartphone. It's available to people who use flip phones and want to text instead of get it on an app. You can always call as well as text or send an email. You can always print information or get a pamphlet, because there will always be residents that want to access information through all of the possible channels, who want to call 311 instead of go in line or come into City Hall and talk to them. So yes, you will always be able to get information through all of the various channels, whether it's printed, online, or through texting, etc. So yes, you will always be able to get printed
Well done.
information.
We got partying it. We got partying it. Partying it.
Excellent.